This guy represents one of your hip bones, okay? The other one is still attached, so there's two hip bones. Okay. They fit together like this, right? The hip bones are part of the appendicular skeleton, okay? What's this guy here? What bone is that?
Sacrum.
That's the sacrum. What's this little bone down here?
Coccyx.
Coccyx. The sacrum and the coccyx are part of your axial skeleton, all right? Anyway, so here you go. You've got a couple of joints here, okay?
Is that the female version?
No, this happens to be male again. Yeah. There's like virtually no females around. So if I ask you that, I'm probably gonna have to use a picture from like a textbook. Ask you to actually that stuff. All right. So you got a couple joints to be aware of. The joint between the what's called the ilium of the hip bone and the sacrum is called the sacroiliac joint. So that's that joint right there. Okay. Then you have the joint anteriorly between the hip bones at the pubic symphysis, which is right there. Let me go through the different parts now of the hip bone. So the hip bone, if I can just remove this one piece. Okay. The hip bone looks like it's one solid bone, and like in adults it is, okay, and in most children it is too. But when you're like in utero and you're developing, each hip bone actually represents three separate bones that then eventually fuse. Okay. The three separate bones are the ilium, the pubis, and the ischium. Okay? The ilium forms the big outer part that flares out. Okay? So let me put these together again. So the ilium. Actually, let me back up for a second. If you look at the socket that you have here, what fits inside that socket?
Femur.
Yeah, the head of the what bone?
Femur.
The femur, okay? The name, what's the fancy name for that socket? It starts with an A. Acetabulum, all right? That socket's called the acetabulum. If you looked inside that acetabulum, all three of those bones that I mentioned, they actually form a portion of that acetabulum. It's like a pie shape. Picture this acetabulum being cut into three equal pie-shaped pieces. Each one of those pieces comes from one of these hip bones. Okay? The hip bone that's down here, that sort of makes a little pie-shaped area down here, that's the pubis. Okay? Sorry. Over here, that's the pubis. Okay? So if you were standing, like if this were on a skeleton, it would sort of be standing at an angle like this. The front part is the pubis. The back part, the part that you're actually sitting on, is the ischium. And then the outer part that flares out is the ilium. All right, so ilium, pubis, ischium back here. Now, the different parts to know. I'm just going to take some of this off here. I told you this is called the acetabulum. That's where the head of the femur fits. This here is the biggest hole in the body, the biggest foramen in the body. Anyone know what that foramen's called? Yeah, that's the obturator foramen. What's the second biggest foramen? We talk about it a lot. It's the magnum foramen that's in your skull. But this is actually the biggest foramen. Okay? It's the obturator foramen. In real life, like if this were a real body, there's actually a membrane that covers most of this, so it's not a super big hole. Only a few things actually go through it, but the bony hole itself is the biggest bony hole that you have in the body. All right, so this is the acetabulum. That's the obturator foramen. This part here, excuse me, my brake's mixed up. This part here represents the pubis. So if I could draw like a pie shape here, picture a pie shape running from here to like there. That pie shape plus all of this up here is the pubis. All right? If I could draw another pie shape that goes like from here to here, all of this area down here is the ischium. And then if I drew my last pie shape from there up to there, all of this stuff up here is the ilium. Different parts that you should know, there's a lot of parts. This big, broad area of the ilium is called the iliac crest. Off of the ilium, there are 4 spines to be aware of. Something called this one here, this one here, this one here and this one here. Okay? This is the anterior superior iliac spine. Okay? This is the guy that when you're standing up, somebody says touch your hips and you touch that bone there, you're touching the anterior superior iliac spine. All right? Picture on this skeleton guy that's standing up here. Okay? That bone that you touch is the anterior superior iliac spine of the ilium. So it's right there. All right. So anterior superior iliac spine. This other guy, you just kind of use your direction terms in there. This would then be the anterior inferior iliac spine. Then when you go back here, this guy represents the posterior superior iliac spine, and this guy represents the posterior inferior iliac spine. All right, so if you know your direction terms, you can probably figure out what that is. All right, this big notch here is called the greater sciatic notch. This little projection down here is called the ischial spine, and then this little notch here is called the lesser sciatic notch. This roughened area, what's that?
Which one is the lesser?
So it would be, oh sorry, there's like a shadow there. I don't know if I can do much about it. This area here would be the lesser sciatic notch. This bigger one is the greater sciatic notch. The pointy thing is the ischial spine. And then this roughened area that you see here, what you're actually sitting on now, it's part of the ischium. It's called the ischiotuberosity. Okay, that's the butt bone that you're sitting on right now. All right.
Which one is the sacroiliac?
Oh, the sacroiliac joint. That would be. So let me show you the piece. Here's the part where it's connected. This is this bone here is what bone is this? That's the sacrum. Okay. This is your pubic bone. Specifically, this area here is the ilium. So this joint between the two is the sacroiliac joint.
Right.
Okay? Let me go down further now. Okay. Here is, it's hard to even see under there. This is your femur. Okay? This happens to be a right femur. Okay? What's this part called?
The head.
The head, and then what's the part below it? The neck. Okay? Other things to be aware of, there's two big bony projections.
Trochanters.
Those are the trochanters. They're probably, you can see them from the front, but they're probably easiest to see them from the posterior side.
Right.
So the big one up here is the greater trochanter. The smaller one down there is the lesser trochanter. Okay. Another thing you see on the posterior surface is something called the linea aspera. It's just that sharp line that runs along the back of the femur. It's a spot where certain muscles attach that we'll talk about later. If you go down to the very end of the femur, you have a medial and a lateral condyle. Okay? Those are the bony parts that form the knee joint. On top of the condyles, you have a medial and a lateral epicondyle. That's where some muscles attach. So you looked at this. Okay? This surface down here, this would represent the condyle. The bony projections up above it are the medial and the lateral epicondyles. Okay? Just like you have the epicondyles in your humerus, right? You got a medial those are the bones you can feel on the sides. You got a medial and a lateral epicondyle on the humerus. You also have and you can feel it on your knee too. You've got a medial and a lateral epicondyle on the femur. You know, in a lot of ways, the femur and the humerus are very similar, just like your radius and your ulna are similar to like your tibia and your fibula in a way. All right. All right. Moving along, let me go down into the leg. All right, got it. Cruise along here. So let me back this up. What's this bigger bone?
Tibia.
Tibia, right? And then the one on the side is the fibula. Okay. If you go down to the well, if you start on the tibia, this area up here is the medial condyle. This is the lateral condyle. All right. So it's the medial condyle of the tibia is touching the medial condyle of the femur, and the lateral condyle of the tibia is touching the lateral condyle of the femur. If you go to the very end, the distal part of the tibia and the fibula, you have the bone on the side here of the tibia called the medial malleolus. And on the side of the fibula, you have the lateral malleolus, and that's what you can feel in your ankle. Once you go down there, you eventually get into the tarsal bones. The tarsal bone that actually forms a joint with the leg bones, that's the talus, which is shown right there. The big one that forms the heel is the calcaneus, and this is, if you're getting your bearings, this is a left foot. Okay. So there's the talus. The big guy down here is the calcaneus. Okay. This little guy that is wedged here on the medial surface is called the navicular bone. Then you have three what are called cuneiform bones, a first, a second, and a third cuneiform. And then this guy that's located lateral is the cuboid bone. Then you have your metatarsals, and then you have your phalanges again. Again, 3 phalanges in every toe except for the big toe, which, like the thumb, only has 2. Now let me go over the knee model really quickly, and then we'll be out of here. Here's the knee model. Okay. Let me see what I can show you. Okay, this happens to be a right leg. Now, make sure you know the bones. What bone is this? Femur. What's this?
Tibia.
Tibia, and what's that?
Fibula.
Fibula. Okay. What's the bone that's inside of here?
Patella.
That's the patella. Okay. Remember, patella is a sesamoid bone. It's fully surrounded by a tendon. Okay. Now, if you follow, this is a tendon. Okay. If they followed this up, what muscle would this be attached to?
Quadricep.
Yeah, this would be attached to your quadriceps. So picture a muscle sitting up here being attached to that. What's the definition of a tendon? It connects a what to a what?
Muscle to bone.
Muscle to a bone. Okay, so your quadriceps would be up here, and the quadriceps tendon connects the quadriceps to the patella. It's a bone. Okay. Now, it continues downward, but as it continues downward, the name just changes. All right? The patella is a bone, and you're eventually attaching down to the tibia. So once you get below the patella, it changes names. What do you call something that connects a bone to a bone?
Ligament.
It's a ligament. All right? So when you're down here, to be technically correct, you would call this the patellar ligament, whereas when you're up here, you call it the quadriceps tendon. Okay? I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's the same piece of tissue. It just changes names as it goes across the patella. Okay? All right, other things to notice on here. You have a number of ligaments that sit outside the joint capsule. You have one located medially. This is called the medial collateral ligament or the tibial collateral ligament. You have one that's located laterally. It's known as the fibular collateral ligament or just the lateral collateral ligament. All right? If I pull, I'm just going to pull the... by the way, when the quadriceps contracts, that's why you get extension of your leg. Right? You pull on it, and you're getting a kick move when it contracts. All right? I'm going to go down here really quickly. Sitting on the very ends of the bone would be what? What type of material is on the very ends of the bone? Articular cartilage. Okay. Now, sitting on top of the articular cartilage of the tibia are these little fibrocartilaginous discs. What are these guys?
Meniscus.
Yeah, those are the menisci. And the menisci that you have located medially, this medial circle is called the medial meniscus. The guy that sits laterally is called the lateral meniscus. Okay. It's just a way of deepening that knee socket to try to make the knee more stable. Doesn't do a perfect job, but that's the goal there. All right. Now, I've yanked this stuff back. You can kind of see the ligaments that are running inside of the knee. So you have what are called extracapsular ligaments that are outside of the joint capsule, but the knee's special. You actually have some ligaments inside of the joint capsule, and these are the famous ligaments that you've probably all heard of. What are the 2 ligaments that are inside the joint capsule? Yeah, the ACL and the PCL. This is the ACL, and that guy back there is the posterior cruciate ligament, the PCL. What does cruciate mean?
The crucial is important.
What does crucify mean? Or what's a crucifix?
Nailed to the
Cross. It means to cross. And if you see, these are called the cruciate ligaments because they essentially cross each other. Okay? So this is the ACL, that's the PCL. If you look on the posterior surface, they kind of threw in an extra ligament that you don't need to worry about here, but you do have, this is the PCL, and then this guy coming there is part of the ACL. Okay? All right, that's all I want to say. That's all we need to know. Right?
That's it.
Now, that's it.
That's it.
Now,